Hey guys, welcome back to Jess and Reads Romance. I'm Jessin, and today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap-up. This time, I'm doing it on time. This is actually the wrap-up of the week that I'd just currently passed, so I'm all caught up on that, and I'm happy about it. Anyway, let's kick this off. The first book I have to talk about is Too Wild to Wed. This is the second book in the Wilds of Lindo Castle by Eloisa James, which I love, and this couple in particular, let's look at the step back. Love. Oh, hello, focus. Why you no focus? There we go. All right. Anyway, so this couple, North and Diana, they were kind of a tease at the end of, what is it called? Wild, oh my goodness, this is gonna kill me. Too Wild to Wed. What was the first one? Wild in Love? Wild in Love? It is Wild in Love. Okay, thank God I have my Airtable next to me. I cannot remember these. So this couple was teased in Wild in Love. They were already engaged, and then Diana calls off the engagement. Well, she just kind of jilts him, runs away, and doesn't tell him why or anything. And so the last that we see of North and Diana at the end of Wild in Love is North discovering where she's at. He's already enlisted in the Army or Navy and is going to go fight in the American Revolution. And he finds Diana in this little cottage with a child, and he just walks away with no explanation. So this book, a couple years have passed, I believe, and Diana has been working in his parents' house in their country estate as a nursemaid. No, a governess. As the governess. Because the Wilds are extremely prolific, they have a ton of children. They won't stop having kids. North, even though he's older and somewhere in his 20s, he has tiny siblings. He has a 3-year-old sister. I love the way that Diana was kind of taken into the fold with the family, and everyone assumes that the child that she's in charge of is hers, and that it's also North's bastard. And actually, it's her nephew. And she hasn't really corrected that assumption because she was in dire straits. When North's aunt discovered Diana and how low she sunk, she just took her under her wing and was like, you're gonna come back with me, work at Lindo Castle as the governess, and take care of Artie and take care of your child. And so she wasn't gonna pass up this opportunity to be safe and have her child safe, which is not her child, it's her sister's child. So Lady No, which is North's aunt, and I absolutely love her. Her character is one of the best characters in the series by far, lets her know that North is returning. So North walks into the nursery and is like, Diana, what are you doing here? He had no idea. None of his family ever told him that Diana was working as a governess in the house. And the thing about it is, North really fell in love with Diana. When he proposed to her, he fell in love with Diana, and Diana felt like it was all a farce because her mother had groomed her 2 daughters to basically catch a duke. And Diana was wearing the most fashionable types of outfits that were pretty out there, and she's like, well, North fell in love with that creature, and that creature's not even me. Diana just thought that that marriage wouldn't even worked anyway, and North comes back thinking that he's completely over Diana, but seeing her again and being in her proximity and being like, I can't see you as a governess, you're a lady. And she's like, no, I'm not, I work, And the way that he tries to take care of her, there's so many scenes where he looks at her clothes and he throws away her stockings and her shoes and stuff to get her to replace it. And it's heartbreaking for her because she's just this is all that I have. And he's like, this was never meant to be you. I understand I'm destroying your property, but I'm gonna give you things to wear, because she definitely doesn't want to take charity. She doesn't want him to pity her, and she doesn't want his charity. But North, despite himself, despite him thinking, oh, I'm totally over Diana, we can see in the little ways that he's trying to take care of her, trying to make her life better, trying to understand her. When she said, you've never really knew me, he's like, okay, well, let me know you and we can be friends, type of thing. So it's a really beautiful relationship, kind of like friends to lovers, because they really are getting to know each other for the first time. So I thought that it was really beautiful. I was a little bit frustrated with Diana toward the end, just because we know that North is so in love with Diana, and Diana is just holds everything close to the vest. So I still love this book, but 4.5 stars. I docked a little bit of half a star because Diana was dragging her feet toward the end, and I was like, girl, get you this man. Anyway, I really liked it. Oh, one more thing. And I kept telling Jenn this, and Jenn's like, she wasn't saying much, and she didn't really remember anyway whenever I was bringing it up. But they keep mentioning the older brother, Horatius, which was the original heir to the dukedom, but now North is because Horatius died. And they talked about how Horatius, there was like a bet that he couldn't like walk his horse across the marshes of the peaty bog behind Lindo Castle, and the horse was retrieved, but Horatius's body was never found. And they keep reiterating that Horatius's body was never found, and I'm just like, why keep mentioning this? Why keep mentioning this? Is he not dead? And I thought maybe there would be a reveal in this book, but there was nothing. And I did go look up to see who the books were about in the next books in the series, and I don't see his name. So I'm just like, I don't know, is it all in my head? Is Horatius not dead? I don't know. Next I have How to Marry Marquise by Julia Quinn. Now this was my random historical pick for the month of March, and I have not read every single book in Julia Quinn's backlist. This is one of her earlier books. So this is very interesting because in page 1, our heroine Elizabeth is kind of like a companion to Lady Danbury, and Lady Danbury is a very prominent, you know, secondary character throughout the entire Bridgerton series, and I really love her character. And she felt a little bit different in this book, but it was like she was becoming Lady Danbury, because in this book she asked her nephew, who is the hero, James, she's like, I want a cane, I want to walk around with a cane. And so it's like she's becoming the Lady Danbury we all know and love. But anyway, I thought that was very interesting. So Elizabeth, her father was a baron, so they were like low gentry, and they lost all their money. They're orphans, and she is taking care of her young siblings. She's been economizing. She's been trying to save as much money as she could working for Lady Danbury, but she has to think about, you know, her siblings, and she has her younger brother who needs to go to Eton, and she's just like, I don't know how I'm going to afford this. I might have to get married. Like, I've been trying to avoid making this a necessity, but I think I might have to get married. So this is like her next step in her plan. At the same time, Lady Danbury has contacted her nephew, James, and this is the second book in a series. It's like, yeah, it's Agents of the Crown, and we do meet the hero of the first book in this one, which is James's friend. But James is basically a spy. He's an agent of the Crown, and he works undercover, and his cover got blown in his last case, and so he's kind of like twiddling his thumbs. He is a Viscount, but he's really never been in the ton, been in society. He doesn't much like it. So his aunt, Lady Danbury, who he's very fond of, writes him a message saying that she's being blackmailed, that somebody's blackmailing her, there's a secret that is hanging over her, and we need to discover who's blackmailing me. And so James is like, okay, well, I'm just gonna act as your like estate manager right now, and just call me James Sidwell. Like, we're not gonna reveal our relation, we're not gonna reveal that I'm a Viscount, and just let me do my spy thing. And of course he meets Elizabeth, and I really love their romance. It was really sweet and cute and funny, but of course his identity is going to have to be discovered. And the reason why it makes it a little bit more like situationally funny is because Elizabeth spies this book in Lady Danbury's library, and it literally says How to Marry a Marquise. She doesn't really take it seriously at first, but then she decides to take it home with her. And her sister kind of studies it for her and tells her like, hey, maybe you should practice on that new like estate manager that's at Lady Danbury's and see if any of this works, like, because obviously you've never flirted at all before. So she's like using these things, and she's very awkward. She's not very good at it, but James starts following her despite all of that because she's a little bit awkward, and she's just super cute. And ironically, he is a Marquis. So when she does discover his true identity, she's obviously hurt that he didn't tell her. And I think that she went a little bit off the rails with her reaction, but I still enjoyed this book a lot, so I'm going to give it 4 stars. Now, the next 2 books were rereads, and Jenn and I don't even remember what Jenn and I were talking about, but we were kind of reminiscing about books, and we got into the subject of the Crossfire series by Sylvia Day, and I had read the Crossfire series years ago, 2015 or 2016, and I haven't really read them since the first time that I breezed through the series. And I decided I want to take a trip down memory lane. This is how it always happens with rereads. I'm just kind of like, I remember really enjoying this. I want to see if I enjoy it as much. And so I read the first one, Bare to You. And it is a very kind of like insta-lovey, very like obsessive romantic relationship between the hero and the heroine, between Eva and Gideon. Honestly, that's kind of what the appeal of the series is. It was kind of the appeal with 50 Shades of Grey, that like these two characters, they weren't dragging their feet about like actually being together. It was just like, how far are we gonna go to admit how we feel about each other? But like they fall hard and fast, and they're pretty obsessed with each other. And so I enjoyed Bare to You, and it actually kind of leaves off at a weird spot. I found when I was rereading, I was like, man, it's kind of like, it leaves a lot of unfinished business, and I don't even feel like there's really an arc in the first book at all. So I did pick up the second book, Reflected in You. And I was enjoying it still up to the point where like the drama started to escalate, the trust issues started to come into play, the kind of like tit for tat behavior, like, oh, if he's gonna go out to dinner with his ex, then I'm gonna go out to dinner with my ex, and that I didn't enjoy. So that's why I only reread the first two, Bare to You and Reflected in You, and I was just like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to go throughout this whole series again, and I remember how it ends, so I don't need to keep rereading. But like sometimes I kind of like to read about this kind of like obsessive, like insane, lusting romantic relationship, and so I got my fill after reading those two. So yep, I did that. I would probably rate Bare to You 4 stars and Reflected in You 3.5 stars. That's my current rating. I don't even remember what I rated them originally. Then I read The Boy and the Bridge by Sam Mariano. Now, Sam Mariano wrote one of my favorite dark romances, and this is an extreme dark romance, Untouchable. I don't recommend it to everybody because it has a lot of non-consensual scenes, very, very messed up relationship, but I enjoyed the way that Sam Mariano explored it, and I enjoyed the characters. So The Boy and the Bridge is definitely not untouchable. It still does happen in high school, but I find, and it's hard not to compare Untouchable, which is one of my favorites, to The Boy and the Bridge, but I found that The Boy and the Bridge felt more high school-y than Untouchable. And like in bully romances, you're always going to have that element of just kind of like mean girls and cliques and like where to sit at lunch and all that type of thing, and like fine, okay, but I feel like most of the book is that the same recycled settings, the same recycled situations, except it's kind of like, well, how is he going to behave today type of thing, because the hero, Hunter, has like a grudge against Riley because Riley accidentally revealed that he was getting abused when he was younger. So this is the premise. Before I get into why The Boy on the Bridge wasn't my favorite read, but it was still kind of enjoyable, and there were some things that I preferred in The Boy on the Bridge as opposed to like how it was handled in Untouchable. But first, so Jenn told me that the first part of this book, which happens whenever they're like around 14 years old, was actually part of the anthology, the Tales of Darkness and Light anthology, which I have and I have not read yet, and it's just sitting on my Kindle. But so all the events of whenever they were 14, that was told. They had a chance meeting when Riley was walking back home from school, and he was sitting on this bridge, and Riley notices that Hunter has bruises all over his face, and she does discover that Hunter's mom likes to date some abusive men. Hunter makes Riley promise, hey, don't tell anybody. And in a roundabout way, Riley has to reveal the reason why Hunter was caught in her room to her mom. Her mom's a single mother, and kind of like a struggling single mother, and she and Riley have a very close relationship, and she was not at all impressed with Hunter in the first place, and so finding Hunter in Riley's bedroom was like a big no-no. And so Riley was just like, Mom, I promise we weren't doing anything, but like, did you not see his face? Like, his stepdad beat him. And so Riley's mom was like, well, we can't, this is very dangerous. We have to report it. And so Hunter is extremely mad because his life just got upended, and so he promises to get revenge on Riley. And so this is a bully romance. It honestly wasn't as bully as I was expecting it to be, and most of it had to do, like the conflict had to do was just like There's this line when he comes back, when they're both 18, when they're both seniors in high school, that Riley draws in the sand and says, you can't cross this line. Like, I understand you're vindictive and I understand you want to pay me back, but like, if you do this one specific thing, that's the only thing I can't forgive. And then he ends up by crossing that line, and so she's just kind of like, I would have forgiven like a bunch of things except for this thing. And so even though he takes a drastic 5,000 steps back from the way he was behaving before he crossed this line, and even though he's like proving again and again and again how committed he is to Riley, she's like, I can't accept. It's like almost like calling defeat, being like, oh, I'm going to compromise what I said. Like, I'm going to go against what I said, and I would have less self-respect for myself, which I understood. But then it came a point where I'm just like, this is a romance. You're going to have to forgive him at some point. So just kind of like, I felt like it wasn't the best conflict to drag on till the very end. But one thing that I really did prefer in The Boy on the Bridge was the relationship between Riley and her mom. Because in Untouchable, the characters, Carter and Zoe, they were in high school, but they really felt very like free and like isolated, no parental supervision, and they were just kind of doing whatever they wanted. And Hunter still does have that kind of non-supervision going for him, but Riley's mom is extremely prominent in her life, and she's an extremely prominent side character in the story, and I really love that. And then Riley's mom eventually gets a boyfriend, Ray, who she's also kind of like a commitment phobe, and Riley to some extent is also a commitment phobe, and Ray just kind of like bulldozes into their life. And I really liked Ray, and I wish that there was more scenes with Ray, the boyfriend. He and Riley had a really good scene where she called him to pick her up from a party, and she was like very hurt, and he was just like total like dad mode, but like understanding, like, I'm here for you, call me, like, it doesn't matter, like, I'm gonna come pick you up. And I just like really love that relationship, so I wish we could have seen more of Ray. All in all, it was a pretty enjoyable read, not like my favorite, so 4 stars for The Boy on the Bridge. Then I read Sweet Thing by J.A. Huss, and Jen was going through the Audible Plus catalog, and I decided to pick it up because it was an age gap romance and I like it, and I'm like, it's Audible Plus, it's technically like free with your Audible subscription, so I decided to pick that up. And I'm laughing because there's a lot of cringy moments in here, and I feel like I didn't hate this book. I would give it 3.5 stars, but I feel like the people who don't like age gap romances, this is what they imagine all age gap romances to be. Because the hero kind of felt like a dirty old man when he was thinking about the heroine. There were just some really cringe moments, especially in the beginning when they first start hooking up together. I was just kind of like, oh no, don't say that. Why did you say it like that? Aria, she starts out in the book, she starts out as 17, and she's a couple days away from her 18th birthday, and Riker is a lot older than her. Riker sometimes sounds like a dirty old man. And Aria, the heroine, is very, very teenagery. She is like a very immature 17-year-old. And when they first hook up, like, her reaction, she's trying to act mature. She's trying to act like, okay, like, you can leave now and stuff like that. But like, she comes across as just kind of like, I don't know. It was just such a weird situation after they first hooked up. She was trying to be mature about it, but she came off as very immature. And she was like saying stuff like, ew, like, no, gross, that sounds so yucky. And I'm just like, what? Oh no, you're making me creeped out by this relationship. And I liked how everything was handled in the end. It's like the front half of this book, I was like, oh, cringe, 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 cringe. But then it started to become sweet toward the end, which was really weird. It's like, I don't know, if I hadn't pushed myself through it, I probably would have hated the book. But it ended up by being okay. So this is my first book that I've ever read by J.A. Huss, and I'm interested to read something else by her. Maybe not this age gap, maybe something else. And then I listened to Reign of a King by Rina Kent. This is another Jen recommendation because Jen like is always telling me everything that she's reading, and a lot of the times I'm just like, this is so up my alley. So this is like a kind of dark billionaire romance. I want to say though, Jen did not have this problem. I'm going to direct you over to her channel so that you can hear her gush about this book because she loved Reign of a King. I did not. I had the opposite reaction to this book. I actually actively hated this book, but I didn't want to DNF because I feel like I had a lot of DNFs in March, so I was like, you can't DNF anymore. Anyway, I actively was not liking the premise of this book. I didn't like the characters. And one of the biggest problems for me, which wasn't a problem for Jenn, was that it felt like the middle book in a series. And it kind of is a spinoff of a lot of her other books. She has like a bunch of duets. I feel like the reputation of the main character, Jonathan, it was built up in other books so that whenever we get to this book, which is my first introduction to any Rina Kent that I've ever read before, I was just kind of like, well, this guy, he's supposed to be like the devil, supposed to be like, you know, an awful man who has like no morals, and it's like his way or the highway, and he'll just like do whatever he wants. And like he has this horrible reputation of being this cutthroat businessman that nobody wants to cross. And I feel like I didn't even get that feeling from him with just this book. And so it was just kind of like, this assumed a reputation. Just assume he's a badass. And I never got like to witness his badassery. And so I was just kind of like, man, I really don't like Jonathan. There's a taboo element with this book because the heroine is the younger sister of Jonathan's wife who died. So it's an I'm falling in love with my dead wife's little sister. That part didn't bother me at all. Like I was like, ooh, I like, that's actually what sold me on it. I was like, ooh, tabooness. How is the family gonna feel about this? I'm like, I can't wait to see how Rina Kent makes this work. And I feel like a lot of the focus was on Jonathan and what was her name? Aurora. I feel like it was on their sexual relationship. It was very lust-filled from the very beginning. And I just didn't feel the connection. I didn't feel the love with them. And I didn't find their sex scenes hot. It turned me off just a little bit. There was a lot of like defiance from her because they had like, they made a deal and she had to like kind of live with him for like the next 6 months. And so she's at his house and he's like, you have to do everything I say. And she agrees. But then everything that he tells her to do, she has to make a stand and be like, no, I'm not doing that. And it just felt very childish, felt very like, I'm stomping my foot. So I didn't really love that. I didn't really love her like bratish behavior. And also, she's supposed to be investigating her sister's death because she's receiving some tapes of her sister like leaving her voice messages, and it's very suspicious. And so she suspects Jonathan. And her whole purpose in accepting this deal is so that she can be in his house and like explore and like find out what happened to her sister, Alicia. She like barely investigates her sister. Like once her and Jonathan start hooking up, she like is just like, oh, I'm just gonna wait until like somebody, this random person who has these voice messages of my dead sister, I'm just gonna wait until the next one's delivered. Like I'm not even gonna try to investigate anything because I'm too busy just telling him no, but like wanting him to spank me. And I was just like, girl, just let him know this is your kink. You want to be spanked. So anyway, 2.5 stars for this book. I didn't think it was a good standalone duet. I think for me to get my enjoyment out of it, because I was just like, there's these random characters talked about in the background, and I don't know, like the Jonathan reputation. There was another dude, Ethan, who they were like, oh yeah, he's been in a coma for like 9 years. And I'm like, what? What's up with this? And then, yeah, there was just a lot that didn't work for me in this book. Moving on. Okay, so lastly, to wrap up this week, I read Make It Sweet by Kristen Callahan. And I did end up by purchasing this book. I actually really like the cover, and it's been a long time since I've read a Kristen Callahan book. The last book that I read by her was like a football series. I think it's like one of her most popular series. It's called the Game On series, and I did read these books quite a while ago. Like it's been years since I've read this book, so I can't even tell you. I do know that one of these heroes in this series has a virgin hero in it, and that's all I remember about it. So anyway, it's been a long time since I've read anything by Kristen Callahan, and I was kind of in the mood for like a sports romance. And this romance I thought was really kind of interesting because the hero is a former hockey player. We meet him and he's still playing hockey, but he is worried about the amount of concussions that he's receiving. And there is one game where he gets knocked unconscious and like his memory is kind of like out for the count for a little while. He has like temporary like amnesia, and it's just very scary. It's a very scary thing. So he does make the decision to retire. He does not want to because hockey is his life. It's what he eats, breathes, and sleeps. It's like his whole identity, and like his world just kind of came crashing down after that. Lucian, who is our hero, his grandmother has this kind of like big estate in California. It's kind of like a retreat. There's like bungalows, people can rent them out, and he decides to go over there to kind of rest, recuperate, get out of the spotlight. And then our heroine, Emma, was kind of like in this really popular Netflixy type series, and it was called Dark Castles, but her character suddenly got killed off. And so now she's kind of like also having an identity crisis. Like, who am I if I'm not Princess Anya anymore? And also, am I only gonna get offered parts similar to this part that I'm well known for? That it was kind of like a Game of Thrones-esque. It reminded me of like Emilia Clarke type of situation. That's what it reminded me of. Like, Emma was Emilia Clarke. And so her grandmother knows Lucian's grandmother, and she suggested, hey, why don't you go over there to kind of like think about your next steps. If you get any scripts, read them over, but like just so that you can get out of the spotlight as well. So that's how Emma and Lucian meet. And Lucian is such a grumpy person, and I really liked his character. Lucian's definitely the character that struggles most with his life changing. And Emma, once they like develop a friendship, and Emma is the one that's trying to be like I totally understand. Like, I'm a person that can understand how you feel like your life can't move on from this point. But also, look at these options that we have. And I like how they explore that together. They have a very like teasing relationship, very hot, very sexy. I really love that. There's like some naked midnight swims. I really loved all that. So I think that this couple was really cute. There was some minor little things that bothered me. Like, I feel like there was so many nicknames in this book. Each character had about 3+ nicknames for each other. The honey pie one, I could really do without that one. And I'm wondering, since it's been so long since I've read a Kristen Callahan book, I'm wondering if this is a thing for her, because I feel like we meet some characters that possibly had a book before. It's like one of her friends, and he calls his fiance Tot. And so I'm wondering if it's like a shortened nickname for like Tater Tot. I don't know. I don't like excessive use of nicknames. I think it could get a little bit cringy sometimes. And for the most part, I feel like if we would have stuck with one nickname for Emma, one nickname for Lucian. Like, I really like the Brick nickname that she had for Lucian. I thought that would have been fine. Also, I did want to mention one of the reasons why this is called Make It Sweet is that Lucian is a secret chef. He can cook and he can bake. Like, his grandfather was a French pastry chef and taught Lucian a lot of things. This is kind of like where he could like zone out and just be mellow. And so that's what he's just been casually cooking at his grandmother's Rosemont like estate. And it's a secret because Emma has no idea that he's the chef. He's the one that's sending her food and stuff. And it's really cute. And I really like the way that Lucian just kind of like, the way that he reacted to Emma enjoying his food. I love cooking, and that's like how I feel whenever I cook for like people. I love cooking for people, and I love for them to enjoy it. Like, it's like, it like brings me so much joy. It's like, hey, this is how I let you know that I care. And like Lucian was doing that too. So I was like, I relate to that, Lucian. I relate to that. So anyway, I thought that this was really cute. I'm gonna give this book 4 stars. So all in all, this was a pretty good reading week for me. I have a reading vlog, a themed reading vlog planned for this weekend. So I'm in the middle of doing those. I'm really excited about that. And then I kind of have a couple of books. I want to read all of them and I can't decide. And so when this happens, I've been leaning on spinner wheels. So I think that that's what I'm gonna do. But I don't know what direction I want to go. I have a lot of historicals that I want to read. I have a lot of like darker romances that I want to read, and it's just all up in the air at this point. Okay, I'm losing light, but we're at the end of the video anyway. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with a little HEA. Bye, guys.